She pleaded, "I can't bear to kneel." The crowd looked past her until a silent gunslinger spoke up. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on Redemption Creek's dusty main street. Sarah Calloway clutched her worn leather satchel tighter as Sheriff Tanner's iron grip on her arm propelled her forward. Her heart hammered against her ribs, the unfairness of it all threatening to choke her. "Keep moving," Tanner growled, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey. "Thieves get what's coming to them." "I didn't take anything," Sarah protested, her voice barely audible above the growing murmurs of the gathering crowd. The townspeople emerged from shops and saloons, drawn by the commotion like vultures to carrion. The sheriff dragged her to the wooden platform in the town square, used for announcements and the occasional hanging. Sarah's leg throbbed with each step, the old injury from childhood making the climb excruciating. "Citizens of Redemption Creek," Tanner bellowed, his voice carrying across the square. "This woman, who came to us claiming to be a respectable schoolteacher, has been caught stealing from our children's future." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sarah scanned their faces, people she'd taught to read, parents of children she'd nurtured, now looking at her with disgust and disappointment. "That's a lie!" Sarah's voice cracked. "I discovered the missing funds and was going to report." Tanner's backhand caught her across the cheek, silencing her. $50 missing from the school fund, found in her quarters. "Planted there," Sarah whispered, tasting blood. "In Redemption Creek, we have traditions for thieves," Tanner continued. "Kneel and confess your crimes." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "Please, I can't kneel. My leg—" "I said kneel!" Tanner pushed down on her shoulder. "I can't bear to kneel," Sarah pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "Please, my injury." The crowd watched impassively, some with pity, most with judgment, none willing to intervene, all except one, a tall figure in the shadows of the saloon entrance, the brim of his black hat pulled low, watching with cold, calculating eyes. 3 days earlier, Ethan Blackwood had ridden into Redemption Creek with nothing but his horse, his guns, and the weight of his past. The town had barely registered his arrival, just another drifter passing through. He'd taken a room above the saloon, paid in advance with gold coins, and kept to himself. Martha Wilson, the saloon owner, had sized him up immediately. "You've got the look of a man running from something," she'd said, sliding a whiskey across the bar. "Or towards it," he'd replied, his voice rough from disuse. Now, watching the scene unfold in the town square, something stirred in Ethan that he thought long dead. The woman's plea echoed in his mind, stirring memories he'd tried to bury beneath years of violence and solitude. Sheriff Tanner forced Sarah down, her face contorting in pain as her bad leg buckled awkwardly beneath her. A whimper escaped her lips, but the crowd remained unmoved, conditioned by fear to accept Tanner's justice without question. Ethan recognized the signs, a town cowed by corruption, decent people looking away rather than standing up. He'd seen it before, had once sworn to fight against it, before everything changed. His hand instinctively moved to the worn grip of his Colt. Old habits. When Sarah collapsed fully to the ground, unable to maintain even a half-kneeling position, Tanner raised his boot to press her face into the dirt. That's when Ethan moved. His spurs jangled with each deliberate step as he emerged from the shadows. The crowd parted instinctively, sensing danger in his measured stride. "That's enough." His voice cut through the square like a knife, quiet yet commanding. Tanner's head snapped up, his boot still poised above Sarah. "This ain't your business, stranger." Ethan's eyes, cold as a winter sky, locked onto the sheriff's. "A town that allows the innocent to suffer deserves no protection," he said, words carrying across the suddenly silent square. "And a lawman who abuses his power deserves no badge." The tension in the square crystallized, brittle as thin ice. Sheriff Tanner's hand hovered near his holster, his face flushing crimson beneath his unkempt beard. "You best move along, stranger. Don't know who you think you are." "He's Ethan Blackwood," came a voice from the crowd, An old-timer stepped forward, squinting. They call him Shadow in the territories. 7 notches on his gun, last I heard. Tanner's expression shifted, recognition and wariness replacing arrogance. Blackwood, the bounty hunter. Former marshal, Ethan corrected, not moving an inch. And I know a frame when I see one. Sarah looked up from the ground, hope flickering in her eyes for the first time. This woman gets a fair trial, Ethan continued, or this badge of yours becomes a target. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Tanner's men flanked him now, hands on their weapons, but uncertainty plain on their faces. Ethan Blackwood's reputation preceded him, a man who didn't miss, didn't bluff, and didn't lose. The law's the law, Tanner blustered, though his confidence was clearly shaken. And I am the law in Redemption Creek. Not the only law, came a woman's voice. Martha Wilson pushed through the crowd, her emerald dress standing out among the drab colors of the townsfolk. Judge Montgomery arrives on today's stage. Let him decide if there's cause for a trial. The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tanner glanced around, realizing the mood had shifted. Fine, he spat. The schoolmarm can wait in a cell until then. Judge always sees things my way anyhow. He yanked Sarah to her feet, ignoring her cry of pain. Ethan stepped forward. I'll escort her. Like hell you will, Tanner growled. Either she walks with dignity, Ethan said quietly, or you leave here in a pine box. Your choice, Sheriff. The crowd held its breath. Finally, Tanner released Sarah's arm with a shove. Take her then. Judge arrives at 4. As Ethan gently helped Sarah toward the jailhouse, Martha fell in beside them. You've stirred up a hornet's nest, Mr. Blackwood, she whispered. Tanner won't forget this. Good, Ethan replied. Neither will I. The jail cell was damp and smelled of mildew, its single window casting bars of light across the dirt floor. Sarah sat on the rickety cot, massaging her aching knee as Ethan leaned against the wall opposite her. Why would the sheriff frame you? He asked, his voice low to avoid being overheard by the young deputy stationed outside. Sarah's eyes darted nervously to the door. Because I found his ledger, she whispered. The school funds, tax money, donations for the new church, all of it's been systematically siphoned for months. When I confronted him privately with my suspicions, he laughed and said no one would believe a newcomer over him. And he was right, Ethan observed. This town's afraid of him. With good reason. Sarah pushed a strand of hair from her face. 3 months ago, a rancher accused him of stealing cattle. The man was found hanging from a cottonwood the next day. Suicide, Tanner called it. Ethan's jaw tightened. And the ledger? Hidden, she replied. I'm not a fool. But without it, it's my word against his. Outside the cell, Deputy Thomas Reed pretended to clean his rifle while straining to hear their conversation. Young and earnest, he'd joined the sheriff's office with idealistic notions of justice that had been steadily eroded by what he'd witnessed. I want to help you, Ethan said, but my reputation might do more harm than good. The jury will see a gunslinger defending a thief. Sarah studied him. You're more than your reputation, Mr. Blackwood. I can see that, even if others can't. Their eyes met, a moment of understanding passing between them. Why did you intervene? She asked softly. No one else would. Ethan looked away, memories threatening to surface. Let's just say, I've seen what happens when good people stay silent. The door creaked open as Martha Wilson entered, carrying a basket covered with a checkered cloth. Brought you some dinner, Sarah, she announced loudly, then lowered her voice. And some friends. My place, midnight. The deputy's with us. As she left, Thomas Reed's eyes met Ethan's briefly, confirming Martha's words with a slight nod. Hope, fragile as a desert flower, began to bloom in the dusty cell. The back room of Martha's saloon was thick with tobacco smoke and whispered conspiracies. Around a scarred oak table sat an unlikely assembly. Ethan, his gun never far from reach. Martha, her business acumen as sharp as her tongue. Thomas Reed, still in his deputy's clothes, but with his badge conspicuously absent. Dr. Wilson, Martha's brother and the town physician. And Eleanor Finch, the telegraph operator who heard everything that passed through Redemption Creek. Tanner's got Judge Montgomery in his pocket, Martha explained, pouring whiskey for everyone except Thomas, who declined. Has for years. The judge arrives, holds court, rules however Tanner wants, then leaves with a hefty consultation fee. The whole town knows, Dr. Wilson added, but knowing and proving are different matters. Thomas cleared his throat. Not entirely different. He reached into his coat and withdrew a small leather-bound book. I've been keeping track. Dates, amounts, conversations. Started as insurance, became something more. Ethan leafed through the deputy's meticulous notes. This is enough to start, but we need the ledger, Sarah mentioned. And witnesses willing to testify, Eleanor added. People are scared. They should be more scared of what happens if nothing changes, Ethan replied grimly. Martha leaned forward. I've got 3 girls who've been harassed by Tanner and his men. They'll talk if they're protected. The stagecoach driver, Dr. Wilson suggested. He's seen the judge and Tanner exchange packages after trials. Thomas nodded. And the banker's clerk. He knows about irregular deposits. It's a start, Ethan conceded. But without Sarah's ledger, the back door burst open. Everyone tensed, hands moving to weapons, but it was only the saloon's piano player, breathless and wide-eyed. Tanner's men, he gasped, coming this way looking for the deputy. Thomas paled. If they find me here— Back door, Martha ordered, already gathering the evidence. Eleanor, take him to your place. Ethan, stay. You're just a customer having a late drink. As they scattered, Ethan caught Martha's arm. Tomorrow at the trial, be ready. Things will get ugly before they get better. Her eyes, hard as flint, met his. Honey, in Redemption Creek, things have been ugly for years. It's about time they got better. The church-turned courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Every pew was filled, with standing room only at the back, where Ethan leaned against the wall, watchful as a hawk. Judge Montgomery, portly and red-faced from the journey, presided from behind a makeshift bench, his black robe incongruous in the frontier setting. Sarah sat alone at a small table, her back straight despite her fear. Across the aisle, Sheriff Tanner lounged confidently beside the town's only lawyer, who had been appointed to prosecute. Court is in session, Montgomery announced, banging a gavel that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Case of Redemption Creek versus Sarah Calloway, charged with theft of school funds. How does the accused plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, Sarah replied, her clear voice carrying to every corner. The trial proceeded with the prosecutor presenting Tanner's version of events: routine inspection, missing money, search of Sarah's quarters, discovery of the funds hidden in her mattress. Each statement built upon the last, constructing a seemingly airtight case. When Sarah's turn for questions came, the judge's impatience was palpable. Sheriff Tanner, Sarah began, who was present during this routine inspection? Just myself, Tanner replied smoothly, as is proper. And during the search of my quarters? My deputies accompanied me. The same deputies who answer directly to you and depend on you for their livelihood? The prosecutor jumped up. Objection, questioning the integrity of our law enforcement. Sustained, Montgomery cut in. Miss Calloway, stick to relevant questions. Sarah persisted. Is it standard procedure to search without a witness from outside the sheriff's office? Tanner's smile didn't reach his eyes. In cases of suspected theft, I have full authority. From the gallery, Martha Wilson stood. Your Honor, I request to testify as a character witness for Miss Calloway. Montgomery frowned. This isn't the time. I also have information relevant to this case, Martha pressed. The judge glanced at Tanner, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Very well, but be brief. As Martha took the stand, Ethan noticed Thomas Reed slip into the church through the side door, accompanied by a nervous-looking man clutching a leather satchel. The pieces were falling into place. The trap was set. Now they just needed Tanner to step into it. Martha's testimony started innocuously enough, praising Sarah's character, her dedication to the children, her honesty. But then she veered into dangerous territory. Strange, isn't it? Martha mused. how the money disappeared right after Miss Calloway questioned the school board about discrepancies in the accounts? The prosecutor sputtered an objection, but Martha continued before the judge could rule. Even stranger that Sheriff Tanner was seen entering the schoolhouse after hours the very night before the money was discovered missing. "Hearsay!" the prosecutor shouted. "Not hearsay when I saw it with my own eyes," Martha countered. "My saloon has a clear view of the schoolhouse." Judge Montgomery banged his gavel. "Mrs. Wilson, you're bordering on contempt." "Speaking of contempt," came a new voice from the back of the church. Deputy Thomas Reed walked down the center aisle, the banker's clerk trailing nervously behind him. "Your Honor, I have evidence that cannot be ignored." Tanner half rose from his seat. "Reed, what the hell do you think you're doing?" "My job," Thomas replied, reaching the front. He placed a ledger and several documents on the judge's bench. The original school accounts showing no missing funds, and bank records indicating deposits to an account in Carson City under the name William Tanner. The courtroom erupted. Montgomery banged his gavel repeatedly, his face purpling with rage or fear, perhaps both. "This is highly irregular. I will not have my courtroom turned into a circus." "Then perhaps," Ethan's voice cut through the chaos as he stepped forward, "you'd prefer to explain these telegrams." He handed a sheaf of papers to the judge. "Correspondence between yourself and Sheriff Tanner, discussing how to handle various cases, provided by Miss Finch from the telegraph office." The color drained from Montgomery's face as he scanned the messages. Tanner's hand moved to his gun, but Ethan's cold stare stopped him. "There's more," Thomas continued, emboldened. "3 witnesses to testify about intimidation. The stagecoach driver who carried packages of money between the judge and sheriff, and Sarah's original notes documenting the missing funds before she was framed." The crowd, initially shocked into silence, began to murmur, then talk openly, the volume rising as the implications became clear. "Order!" Montgomery shouted, but his authority had evaporated like morning dew under the harsh sun of truth. Sheriff Tanner's face contorted with rage as he surveyed the turning tide. His carefully constructed world was collapsing around him. With the speed and desperation of a cornered animal, he lunged across the aisle, grabbed Sarah by the hair, and pressed his revolver to her temple. "Enough!" he roared. The church fell silent instantly. "Nobody moves, or the schoolmarm gets a third eye." Ethan's hand hovered near his holster, but he remained still, eyes locked on Tanner's trigger finger. "Smart move, Blackwood," Tanner sneered. "Now everyone's going to back away nice and slow. The judge, me, and our guest of honor are leaving. Anyone follows, she dies." "You won't get far," Ethan said quietly. "You know that." "Far enough," Tanner replied, dragging Sarah toward the door, her injured leg causing her to stumble. "Drop your gun, Blackwood. Kick it away." Ethan complied, his movements deliberate. "This isn't about her, Tanner. It's about you and me." "You?" Tanner laughed bitterly. "You're nothing. Just another gunslinger past his prime." "Not just another gunslinger," Ethan replied, his voice taking on an official tone that made Tanner pause. "Federal Marshal Ethan Blackwood. Retired, but the oath still stands." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Tanner's eyes narrowed. "You're lying." 5 years hunting corrupt officials across 3 territories, Ethan continued, "until Broken Ridge. Sheriff there killed my wife and daughter when they witnessed him murdering a farmer over water rights." His voice remained steady, but his eyes burned with a cold fire. "I got justice, but the badge didn't fit after that." Understanding dawned on Tanner's face. "The Broken Ridge massacre, that was you?" "That was justice," Ethan corrected. "Just like this will be." Sarah's eyes met Ethan's, fear mingling with a desperate hope. "Let her go," Ethan said. "Take me instead. 1 shot, fair and square. Sundown Main Street. You win. You ride free with a reputation that'll make every door west of the Mississippi open for you. The man who outdrew Shadow Blackwood." The offer hung in the air, tempting Tanner's vanity. His grip on Sarah loosened slightly. "Or," Ethan continued, You can shoot an unarmed woman in a church full of witnesses and be hunted down like a rabid dog. Tanner's eyes darted around the room, calculating his odds. Finally, he shoved Sarah forward. "Sundown," he agreed. "And Blackwood, bring a coffin." The sun hung low over the western mountains, painting Redemption Creek's main street in hues of amber and gold. Townsfolk lined the boardwalks, doors and windows of surrounding buildings filled with onlookers. No one wanted to miss the showdown, yet none wished to be caught in the crossfire. Ethan stood alone at the north end of the street, his black duster rippling in the evening breeze. He'd removed his spurs. In a gunfight, every sound mattered, and checked his Colt one final time before holstering it. Sarah pushed through the crowd, her face etched with concern. "You don't have to do this," she pleaded. "We have evidence now. We can bring in federal marshals." "Tanner would be long gone before they arrived," Ethan replied, "taking more lives with him, likely." "He's fast," she warned. "I've seen him draw." A ghost of a smile crossed Ethan's face. "So am I." Martha approached, leading Sarah away. "Let him do what he came to do," she murmured. "Some men find redemption in strange places." At the south end of the street, Sheriff Tanner emerged from the jailhouse, flanked by his remaining loyal deputies. He'd discarded his badge, a tacit acknowledgement that this was no longer official business. This was personal. The deputies peeled away, leaving Tanner to walk the final stretch alone. The two men approached each other, stopping 30 paces apart. "Not too late to ride out," Ethan called, his voice carrying in the hushed street. "And miss putting a bullet in the famous shadow?" Tanner replied. "Not a chance." Judge Montgomery, sobered by his fall from grace, but still the closest thing to authority present, stepped into the street between them. "Standard rules," he announced. "I count to 3, then call draw. Any man who draws before is a murderer, not a victor." Both gunfighters nodded their agreement. The judge retreated to the boardwalk. "1!" Ethan's mind cleared, the world narrowing to the man before him. "2!" Tanner's hand twitched near his holster, eyes gleaming with anticipation. "3! Draw!" 2 shots cracked almost simultaneously, echoing off the buildings. Tanner's bullet whistled past Ethan's ear. Ethan's found its mark. Tanner staggered, a crimson stain blossoming on his chest. Disbelief crossed his face as he collapsed to his knees, then pitched forward into the dust. Redemption Creek had a new chapter to write. Dawn broke over Redemption Creek, the first rays of sunlight illuminating the freshly painted sign above the schoolhouse. Inside, Sarah arranged books on shelves while Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his arm in a sling. Tanner's bullet had grazed him after all. "The children return tomorrow," Sarah said, her voice tinged with excitement. "Their parents voted unanimously to keep me on." "They know a good teacher when they see one," Ethan replied. "And the town's funds?" "Recovered most of it from Tanner's hiding place behind the jailhouse wall. The rest will come from the sale of his property." She paused, studying him. "Deputy Reed makes a fine acting sheriff. Thomas has a good heart. He'll serve this town well." Sarah approached him, her limp less pronounced now that she walked with a proper cane, crafted by the town's carpenter as a gift. Judge Montgomery confessed everything before the federal marshals took him away. Said he'd been in Tanner's pocket for years. "Men like that thrive in shadows," Ethan observed. "Bring them into the light. They wither quick enough." A comfortable silence fell between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. "What will you do now?" Sarah finally asked, the question that had hung between them for days. Ethan looked out the window at the town stirring to life, Martha opening her saloon for breakfast, Thomas making his morning rounds, shopkeepers sweeping boardwalks. "I've been drifting a long time," he said slowly. "Might be nice to stop for a while." "Redemption Creek could use a man with your experience," she suggested. "Deputy positions open." He chuckled. "Not sure I'm cut out for a badge anymore." "Then don't wear one," she said simply. "Just stay." Their eyes met, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. The ghosts that had driven him from town to town seemed quieter here. "I might do that," he said. "For a while, at least." Together they stepped onto the schoolhouse porch. The morning sun bathed the town in golden light, promising a new day, a fresh start. For a place called Redemption Creek, it seemed fitting. Sarah's hand found his, and neither pulled away. Sometimes redemption came in unexpected forms, for a town, for a drifter, for a schoolteacher who refused to kneel. As the dust settles on our tale of courage and justice, we're reminded that sometimes the most powerful act of defiance is simply refusing to kneel, whether to corruption, injustice, or our own past demons. Sarah and Ethan's journey shows us that redemption isn't just a place on a map, but a path we choose when we stand up for what's right, even when we stand alone. What moment in your life required you to take a stand when everyone else looked away? Share your story in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey through Redemption Creek, make sure to subscribe for more tales that explore the rugged landscapes of human courage and the unexpected heroes who emerge from the shadows. Your support helps our stories reach those who need them most. Remember, every great change begins with a single voice willing to speak up.